After notably failing to mention their father in last month's ITV documentary on Diana, Princes William and Harry have now spoken about the role Prince...
And I wouldn't let it break me. I wanted it to make me. I wanted her to be proud of the person I would become. I didn't want her worried or her legacy to be that, William and or Harry were completely and utterly devastated by it.
Prince William wasn't supposed to open that file, but when he did, everything changed. A hidden letter, a missing report, and a chilling pattern linking Diana's darkest fears to the people she trusted most. What he uncovered about that Paris tunnel crash wasn't just tragic, it was calculated. The affair, the silence, the aftermath, it all leads back to one shocking truth. For 26 years, the palace hid the real story. But now, William has the proof, and it's devastating. The night that changed the world forever. It was August 31st, 1997, when the world received the unthinkable news. Princess Diana, the beloved People's Princess, had died in a car crash in Paris. The exact time was approximately 12:25 a.m. inside the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, a dark corridor now etched in collective memory. Diana had been trying to escape a relentless pack of paparazzi. Inside the black Mercedes-Benz with her were her romantic partner Dodi Fayed, her bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones, and the driver, Henry Paul. What began as a quiet evening became a catastrophe in seconds. The world was thrown into chaos. As the news broke around 4:00 a.m., TV channels across Europe and North America cut their regular broadcasts. Outside Kensington Palace, mourners began arriving within hours. By September 10th, flowers reached a depth of nearly 5 feet. Yet behind the flowers, candles, and tears, a deeper unease lingered. Questions began to rise. Why wasn't Diana wearing a seatbelt? How did the car lose control in such a short distance? And why did none of the 14 traffic cameras in or near the tunnel capture a single usable frame? The initial explanation from French authorities in 1999 blamed Henry Paul, who was found to have an alcohol level over 3 times the legal limit. He was also reportedly on antidepressants and antipsychotic medication. But inconsistencies soon emerged. Witnesses claimed Paul was calm and sober before driving. Others insisted the paparazzi were the true cause. In truth, the crash wasn't just fast, it was violent. The Mercedes slammed into the 13th pillar of the tunnel at an estimated 65 mph. Dodi and Henri died instantly. Diana survived the initial impact but went into cardiac arrest en route to La Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital. Doctors fought to save her for nearly 2 hours. Despite open heart massage and multiple transfusions, her injuries, particularly a torn pulmonary vein, were too severe. At 4:00 a.m., Princess Diana was pronounced dead. But even as her heart stopped beating, the conspiracy theories started breathing. Some whispered about a staged accident. Others suggested that her growing relationship with Dodi, a Muslim man, posed a problem for the royal establishment. To the public, this wasn't just an accident. It felt like erasure. And for Prince William, then only 15 years old, it would become a wound that never fully healed. But as years passed and the pain dulled into ritualized remembrance, a trail of hidden truths began to surface, clues buried beneath silence, misdirection, and royal protocol. The deeper William looked, the more convinced he became. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was a cover-up, waiting to be unmasked. Sarah's silent regret. For decades, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's older sister, remained mostly silent. She avoided interviews, stayed away from Buckingham gossip, and rarely stepped into the media spotlight. But in May 2023, during a private family gathering in Norfolk, she opened up for the first time. What she revealed stunned even those closest to her. Sarah had not only introduced Diana to Prince Charles back in 1977, but she had also briefly dated him before Diana ever entered the picture. The irony wasn't lost on her, it haunted her. At the time, Sarah and Charles shared long talks about literature, politics, and the state of the monarchy. They met during a countryside hunt in Lincolnshire, and though it wasn't a fairy tale romance, it was genuine. But Sarah's flippant remark to a Daily Mirror reporter, "I wouldn't marry Charles if he were the dustman or the King of England," ended the relationship. Just weeks later, Diana was invited to Balmoral, and the rest, as the world believes, was history. Sarah believed she had handed her sister a crown, but over time, it felt more like a curse. Years later, Diana would confide to Sarah that she felt like a sacrificial lamb. According to a letter written in 1993, Diana told her sister that she had been chosen for optics, not love. Sarah held on to that letter for 30 years, never showing it to anyone, until William came asking. The words were written in blue ink, folded neatly into an envelope marked S. It described Charles's coldness, Camilla's shadow, and Diana's growing belief that something dark was coming. Sarah said she never knew how serious. Diana's warnings were until after the crash. What broke Sarah's silence wasn't just guilt, it was William's visit. In early 2023, William asked her directly, "What did she say to you that summer?" With tears, Sarah handed over the letter. She told William, "I didn't think it would matter. I was wrong." That single moment altered William's entire understanding of the years leading up to his mother's death. For the first time, he saw it not as an accident, but as the inevitable result of a slow, deliberate unraveling. And at the center of that unraveling was the oldest wound of them all, the affair that broke Diana's spirit. It didn't begin in Paris or end in Kensington. It began in secret phone calls, clandestine meetings, and a Camilla-shaped shadow that haunted every royal room Diana walked into. The affair that broke the princess. By 1980, Diana Spencer was already being groomed for royal life. She was only 19 years old when her courtship with Prince Charles began, and by February 1981, they were engaged. But long before the sapphire ring and global fanfare, there was Camilla Parker Bowles. Charles's relationship with Camilla had never truly ended. Diana suspected it early. Just weeks after the honeymoon in Gibraltar, she found photos, letters, and even a bracelet engraved with Camilla's initials, GF for Girl Friday. That discovery devastated her. Diana later revealed in private interviews with Andrew Morton in 1992 that her bulimia began shortly after finding the bracelet. Her weight dropped from 135 pounds to under 110 within 2 months. She felt unworthy, discarded, and increasingly isolated inside the stiff walls of Buckingham Palace. Charles, meanwhile, continued his double life, publicly smiling, privately whispering sweet nothings to Camilla. Diana's emotional breakdowns were labeled hysteria, and she was often treated more like a PR problem than a person. In her 1995 BBC Panorama interview, watched by over 23 million viewers, Diana finally said what the palace refused to admit. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." That quote shattered royal protocol. It wasn't just scandal, it was mutiny. But behind that calm face and poised voice was a woman drowning. Diana began making risky decisions. She admitted to having affairs, not for love, but for power. One close friend claimed she once whispered, "If I can't be loved, I'll be feared." Diana's desperation grew with each passing year. Her 1994 appearance at the Serpentine Gallery in that infamous revenge dress was a statement seen around the world. It was the same night Charles publicly admitted to his infidelity in a TV interview. The dress wasn't just fashion, it was fury. Diana was no longer begging for love. She was exposing it. But inside, she was crumbling. She wrote in a 1996 letter to her therapist, "Every time I smile for the cameras, a little piece of me dies." By the time she met Dodi, she wasn't looking for love. She was looking for escape. But the final escape would lead her straight into the shadows of Paris. And what happened that night wasn't just a chaotic crash. It was a series of choices, warnings and failures that began long before that tunnel and ended in a silence that still echoes through the palace halls. Revenge and rebellion. By early 1996, Princess Diana had stopped trying to fit into the mold the royal family expected of her. The marriage was officially over. Queen Elizabeth II had formally advised both Diana and Charles to divorce that December, and the decree was finalized in August 1996. With her title stripped, no longer Her Royal Highness, and her security reduced, Diana felt freer in public, yet more exposed than ever. What began as heartbreak slowly transformed into rebellion. She stopped hiding her emotions, her causes, and her fury. Behind closed doors, Diana began crafting a plan to regain control over her life and her legacy. Her diary entries from January to May 1997 show a shift in tone, from despair to vengeance. She wrote about outshining Charles in the press, gaining global support, and using her popularity to embarrass the monarchy. She stopped asking for permission to attend events, and instead made surprise appearances that stole headlines. One friend later revealed that Diana referred to the media frenzy around her as the only sword I have left. This rebellion wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. In June 1997, Diana auctioned off 79 of her gowns at Christie's in New York, raising over $5.7 million for AIDS and cancer charities. But it also made a statement. She was shedding the past. Days later, she began a highly publicized romance with Dodi Fayed, son of Egyptian billionaire Mohammed Al Fayed. The relationship shocked the public and reportedly enraged palace officials. Photos of Diana and Dodi vacationing on a yacht in the French Riviera circulated worldwide. Sources close to Diana say this was no accident. It was a message. By August 1997, Diana's phone calls were being monitored by multiple tabloids and intelligence agencies. One MI5 insider later confirmed in a leaked report that Diana's communications with Dodi raised potential concerns for national optics. Some feared she might move abroad, marry a Muslim man, and take her sons with her. Diana knew she was being watched, and she leaned into it. Her journal on August 28th, just 3 days before her death, included the phrase, "They want me quiet. I'll speak louder." That final act of defiance would take her straight to Paris and into the hands of her enemies. But Paris would not offer the freedom Diana sought. In fact, it offered the opposite. Her journey from that Paris hotel to the Pont de l'Alma tunnel was filled with strange decisions, missing footage, and a string of avoidable errors. What really happened that night still sparks debates, and the details only deepen the mystery. The Paris Trap. On the night of August 30th, 1997, Diana and Dodi dined at the Ritz Paris, a hotel owned by Dodi's father. Their plan was to head to Dodi's apartment on Rue Arsène Housset, a short 5-minute drive. But photographers had been stationed outside the hotel for hours. To avoid them, a decoy car was sent out the front while Diana, Dodi, and their bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones exited through the back. The car they entered, a 1994 Mercedes-Benz S280, was driven by Henri Paul, the hotel's deputy head of security. Henri Paul wasn't supposed to be driving that night. According to Ritz staff, he had consumed 2 Ricard pastis and at least 3 beers earlier that evening. Blood tests later confirmed his blood alcohol level was over 125 grams per liter, more than 3 times the legal limit in France. Still, Diana and Dodi trusted him. No seatbelts were worn, something uncharacteristic of Diana, who was famously cautious about road safety. At 12:20 a.m., the car pulled away, and within 4 minutes, they entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. What happened inside that tunnel has been disputed ever since. The Mercedes struck the 13th pillar at an estimated speed of 65 miles. Dodi died instantly. Henri Paul's body was found pinned behind the wheel. Rees-Jones survived with critical facial injuries. Diana was still alive, trapped in the wreckage. First responders noted she was conscious, whispering, and in pain. She was extracted from the vehicle at 1:00 a.m., but instead of being rushed immediately, she was treated on-site for 40 minutes. A controversial decision that many believe cost her life. Even more disturbing was the complete absence of security footage. The Pont de l'Alma tunnel had 14 cameras, but none were recording. French authorities claimed the system was outdated and did not retain footage. A traffic camera directly above the tunnel was also not functioning that night. This technological blackout only fueled suspicions. In Diana's private notes, discovered later by William, she wrote in June 1997, "If I die in a car, check the cameras. That's where the answers will be." The cameras failed, and the questions only multiplied. As the media tried to spin an explanation, William wasn't ready to accept it. Nearly 3 decades later, in a quiet investigation of his own, he uncovered something long buried: Operation Paget's sealed files. And within those pages were whispers of warnings that his mother had once written and had been ignored. Operation Paget and the Unheard Warnings. By 2004, after years of speculation, the British Metropolitan Police launched Operation Paget, an official inquiry into the death of Princess Diana. Headed by Lord John Stevens, the operation examined over 175 claims, interviewed more than 300 witnesses, and reviewed thousands of documents from both British and French authorities. But one piece of evidence immediately caught the attention of Prince William when he accessed the records in 2023. A handwritten letter dated October 1993, in his mother's handwriting, predicting her death. The letter, given to her butler Paul Burrell, read, "My husband is planning an accident in my car. Brake failure and serious head injury." Diana believed the motive was to clear the path for Charles to marry the woman he loves, Camilla. At the time, most thought the note was an overreaction, but the language was chillingly specific. Burrell had kept the letter hidden for 11 years, revealing it only after Diana's death. And yet, it had never been included in official royal records until William requested it. William also reviewed reports from Mohammed Al-Fayed, who insisted Diana and Dodi were under surveillance, according to Declassified documents. MI6 had agents in Paris that night. One claimed Diana's movements were logged in real time. More shockingly, some of these logs were redacted in the final public report. When William pushed for access, he found inconsistencies, pages marked lost, timelines that didn't align, and digital recordings that had allegedly been erased. The more he uncovered, the clearer it became. Someone had tried to control Diana's story. Yet, the most gut-wrenching discovery came not from a document, but from an interview buried in a forgotten archive. A 1995 session between Diana and her lawyer, Lord Mishcon, included chilling audio of Diana saying, "If I disappear, check the brakes." William listened to that recording 3 times in a row. The voice was unmistakable. The fear was real. Diana had not been paranoid. She had been perceptive, and the very people she feared had, at best, ignored her, or at worst, ensured she would never speak again. For William, this was no longer about theories. It was about truth. And truth, he realized, wasn't in the reports. It was in the details that were erased. So, he returned to the one place untouched by red tape and cover-ups, his mother's private jewelry box. What he found there would change everything. The jewelry box that shouldn't exist. In early April 2023, Prince William was invited to view a newly restored collection from Princess Diana's personal effects, long hidden in storage. Among the velvet-lined trays and preserved documents was something unexpected. A jewelry box he hadn't seen since he was 15 years old, just days after Diana's funeral in 1997. The gold-trimmed box had been packed away, supposedly under royal protection. But its sudden reappearance after 26 years raised unsettling questions. The jewelry box wasn't just a container, it was a memory vault. As William opened the lid, the scent of Diana's perfume, her signature fragrance from Guerlain's 1983 collection, clung to the velvet. Inside were relics of his childhood. The locket from Saint-Tropez, a brooch she wore to a 1995 children's charity gala, and a sapphire ring that looked identical to one once reported missing in 1998. But something was off. The items weren't arranged the way Diana always kept them. One compartment jammed. Another looked recently scratched. Someone had clearly handled it. Even worse, several key items were missing. Diana's signature gold bracelet, engraved with her initials and given to her by William on his 13th birthday, was replaced with a replica. Her famous sapphire pendant, worn at the 1996 Met Gala, was gone. In its place was a worn strip of blue fabric, torn and hastily tucked under the lining. Then, tucked into a loose compartment under the mirror, William found the half-torn envelope dated August 1997, containing only a few words in Diana's handwriting. For William, when the time is right. But it wasn't until William returned to that box weeks later, this time alone, that he discovered the hidden truth his mother had left behind. A false bottom, a hidden envelope, and a letter that finally gave him the answers he'd searched for since 1997. Diana's final message. In July 2023, William revisited the jewelry box late one evening. Something about the base felt uneven. When he lifted the inner lining, a panel popped loose, revealing a thin compartment. Inside was an envelope, neatly labeled in Diana's handwriting, "For William and Catherine, in time." It contained 2 letters. The first was written in January 1997, months before Diana's death. It spoke of her hopes for her eldest son's future, her admiration for a girl with a quiet smile, a likely reference to Catherine Middleton, whom William hadn't even met yet. In that letter, Diana wrote about the kind of partner she wished for William. She described someone loyal, graceful, and unafraid of kindness, and said she dreamed of watching him marry in front of millions. She warned of the danger of cold traditions and pleaded with him to always choose love over protocol. For William, reading his mother's words nearly 26 years later felt like a time loop, like she had reached across decades to guide him. But the second letter was darker. In it, Diana explained that she had removed 3 specific items: her sapphire pendant, engraved bracelet, and gala brooch from the official royal inventory. She feared they would be stolen or redistributed by force after her death. She marked them with dots under the lining of the box and ended the letter chillingly. "If you find this, something went wrong. Protect what's left." She signed it simply, Mummy. For William, the message confirmed what he had suspected. Diana knew something was coming. She had tried to protect her legacy, and she had been right. But Diana's letters weren't just emotional. They were legal. They contained clues, dates, and proof. William wasn't going to the press, not yet. He was going into the palace archives, and what he found would reveal how far the deception had reached. The palace's hidden trail. By August 2023, Prince William quietly ordered a private internal audit of royal storage records dating back to 1997. With help from trusted aides and a discreet forensic team, he traced the movements of Diana's belongings. What he discovered was alarming. Between 1998 and 2002, several boxes were relocated from Althorp House to Clarence House, then to Highgrove, all without proper documentation. Gaps in inventory reports, missing logs, and more importantly, unknown access. One name kept reappearing: Camilla Parker Bowles. In a 2001 entry logged by a junior archivist, Camilla had requested privacy while reviewing personal effects stored in a sealed room. William's team later confirmed fingerprint traces on Diana's jewelry box matched a former Clarence House staffer closely linked to Camilla's inner circle. When asked for comment, the individual, now retired, refused to speak. But another former footman recalled a strange moment in 2010 when Camilla was seen slipping a sapphire pendant into her handbag, then turning pale when spotted. Further inquiry revealed that a Mayfair jeweler had serviced a sapphire piece in 2011. On behalf of the Duchess of Cornwall, the records were clear. The description matched the pendant Diana wore to the 1996 Met Gala. That repair receipt, alongside Diana's letter, proved it had been removed posthumously. The palace's silence for over 2 decades was no longer just avoidance, it was complicity. William compiled the findings, photographed everything, and stored them in a locked safe beneath Kensington Palace, known only to 3 people. And just when it seemed William had found all there was to find, a new leak changed everything. A media firestorm erupted in October 2023. The jewelry, the letters, the lies. The world now wanted answers, and Queen Camilla could no longer hide behind the palace walls. The day everything changed. On October 5, 2023, a British tabloid broke the story: missing Diana heirlooms linked to Queen Camilla. Within hours, it spread globally. BBC, CNN, and Sky News ran segments. Social media platforms flooded with clips of Diana, her jewelry, and angry reactions from around the world. Within 48 hours, the hashtag #JusticeForDiana trended in over 23 countries. The public fury was overwhelming, especially from those too young to remember 1997, but raised on stories of Diana's warmth and injustice. Camilla, once cautiously accepted as queen consort, was now under intense scrutiny. By October 8th, protesters gathered outside Clarence House and Buckingham Palace, laying flowers and holding signs that read, "Return what was hers," and "She was always watching." A YouGov poll released on October 10th showed Camilla's approval rating had plummeted below 22%, the lowest for a senior royal since the 1990s. Even longtime royal defenders struggled to defend her. Inside the palace, crisis meetings were held daily. King Charles reportedly called a family unity summit on October 12th, but William refused to attend unless Camilla publicly addressed the matter. She remained silent. Then, on October 20th, Camilla made an appearance at a charity event without a single piece of royal jewelry. The message was clear. Behind closed doors, it was confirmed that several of Diana's marked pieces were returned to William and placed in a secure vault. But the damage was done. William later gave a speech at a children's hospice on November 3rd, during which he read a line from Diana's letter: "Choose love over protocol." The words were subtle but powerful. Those who knew the story understood. Diana's final message had reached its audience. The princess they tried to forget had found her voice again. Through her son, through hidden letters, and through a box that should have stayed lost, but didn't. The truth was never buried. It was hidden in plain sight. In Diana's own words, in William's silent grief, and in the royal shadows too afraid to face it. But now, the silence is broken. Diana's voice has returned through her son, her letters, and her legacy. Justice may never come with handcuffs, but it comes with clarity. If this shook you, share her story, because what was done to Diana wasn't just betrayal. It was history rewritten, and now we remember.